So what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of a mid-range phone? Definitely not a flagship Snapdragon 845 chipset, I hope. Well, not if Xiaomi has it, say. Behold the Poco F1. I'm Shubhajit from Digit, and today I have with me a very special device. This is the cheapest 845 phone you can get in the market right now. The beast I have with me has a price tag of a mid-ranger, but underneath is all flagship. Well, almost all flagship. A lot of you guys are calling the Poco F1 the OnePlus 6 killer. It can certainly match up to it in terms of the firepower, but is that enough to call a phone a flagship? Well, let's find out. The Poco F1's focus is primarily on speed. There is a Snapdragon 845 chipset underneath which more or less guarantees the speed. However, if that isn't enough, you get a dedicated cooling mechanism to push the performance even further. Poco compared the F1 with the likes of the OnePlus 6, the Galaxy S9 Plus at the launch, and in this review we'll see if it stands up to the tall claims. The F1 has an interesting design. It doesn't have a metal body, which is common, neither does it have a glass back, which is what flagships are using these days. Instead, it went back to good old polycarbonate. The hard plastic body is solid and has no flex whatsoever. It's also a lot more durable than your average glass back phone. Then there's the armored edition, which I have with me right here. It's made out of Kevlar. That's the same material that's used to make bulletproof vests. Now, while the F1 won't catch a bullet for you, it's certainly more durable and non-slippery. There is a tiny spot here just below the Poco logo, and I couldn't find a logical explanation for it. But apart from that, the thing to note here is that by launching a new sub-brand, Xiaomi gets the space to experiment a lot more. It doesn't have the baggage that is attached to being the #1 smartphone brand in the country. Now up front, like most other phones, the F1 gets a notch. It looks a lot like the iPhone X, and the notch is quite a big one. It's big because there's a dedicated IR sensor in it to allow face unlock to work even under low light. The feature is usually reserved for more expensive phones, and I'm honestly surprised to see it in this price range. Nevertheless, face unlock works blazing fast even when the light is poor. The body is quite compact as well, and even though it's not the slimmest phone out there by a mile, thanks to the 4000 mAh battery it packs inside, but between a slim form factor and a long battery life, the choice is obvious for most. Overall, this is a phone that is well built and quite adept at handling the daily wear and tear. The 6.18-inch panel that's on top of the F1 has a 19:9 aspect ratio. It's an average IPS LCD panel with Full HD Plus resolution that we have seen in most other phones in this price range. It's too much to expect an AMOLED panel in this segment anyway. The one on the F1 is just about functional. It's sufficiently bright, although under direct sunlight, colors do tend to get washed out a bit. The blacks aren't quite saturated in the display. Because of that, when you hide the notch, it's kinda still visible. But like we said before, the focus of this phone is on speed. Poco promised better sustained peak performance, and it stands true in our benchmark tests. It scored higher than the OnePlus 6 in all our tests. On Antutu, it got a score of 2,65,754, while on Geekbench, it got a score of 2,467 and 9,009 in single and multi-core tests. The chipset is combined with up to 8 GB of RAM and 256 GB of storage. In real life as well, the F1 is blazing fast. There's no delay in launching apps, there's no lag while an app is running, but it must be noted that there's no app on service right now that can stress the 845 CPU long enough to test for sustained peak performance. Even heavy popular apps like PUBG Mobile don't use the full resources of the chipset for longer. Essentially, you have to take Poco's word for it. Now, in an earlier video though, we showed how good the F1 is at gaming as compared to the OnePlus 6. After 30 minutes of gameplay, the F1 didn't heat up as much as the OnePlus 6, although the battery use was much more than the OnePlus 6. Low temperatures can be attributed to the dedicated cooling contraption on the Poco F1. Poco calls it liquid cool, but there isn't any liquid inside the body. Instead, you have copper pipes that carry water vapors to absorb the CPU heat and dissipate it across the body. It's similar to something that we have seen in the Galaxy Note 9, which comes for Rs 67,000, somewhere around it. The Poco F1 is using a customized MIUI 9.5 UI, which is more attuned towards stock Android fans. Called the Poco Launcher, the UI has an app drawer. Now that's a first for a Xiaomi phone. The launcher will also be available for anyone to download from the Play Store later this month. The customization includes faster transition animations, faster swipes and flicks, and more than that. At the launch, Poco claimed the launcher has some deep system optimization that helps it work blazing fast. Now these are optimizations that we have also seen on the OnePlus 6, so we know where it's getting its DNA from. However, the software is not perfect. It still has some bugs to iron out. Now during my review, the volume rocker stopped working till I restarted the phone. The status bar showed no app icons while the apps kept crashing. Nothing that a new update won't fix though. The F1 also supports carrier aggregation. I consistently got around 8 Mbps speed on my GeoSIM as compared to 5 Mbps on the OnePlus 6. There's also dual VoLTE and dual 4G out of the box. A good camera can make or break a flagship phone, and the Poco F1 offers quite a lot in the camera department. But does it all work as advertised? The F1 has a dual camera unit at the back, a 12MP IMX363 sensor with a f1.8 aperture lens and 1.4 pixel pitch. That is quite high as compared to other phones in that price range. Now that is paired with a 5MP depth sensor. Up front is a 20 megapixel camera that uses pixel binning to get better low light selfies. Now the camera unit is similar to what you get on the Mi 8 that is still unreleased in India so far, but Poco claimed it used Mi 8's algorithms to optimize the camera. There's also a healthy dose of artificial intelligence. In daylight, the Poco F1 can take good vibrant photos. It can quickly recognize the scene you're shooting and applies the relevant camera parameters. The AI mode will increase the contrast and saturation to make photos more palatable. The camera is also quite adept at capturing solid colors. The black and yellow cab of Bombay roads came out perfectly saturated and looks pleasing. Portrait shots also come out quite well. While indoors, the lack of stabilization means you have to have steady hands to take good photos. Once it's stable enough, straight lines appear well preserved with acceptable sharpness. Exposure and dynamic range is also quite commendable. Under low light though, the Poco F1's camera struggles a bit. It takes some time to shoot and there's a high loss in details. It's less noisier though, and there's visible softening of textures. Now completing the package is a 4000 mAh battery. In fact, it's the only Snapdragon 845 phone with that big a battery in India right now. We got around 11 hours of 45 minutes in our PC Mark battery test, which should mean you'll get more than a day and a half worth of usage on a single charge. Now Poco bundles a quick charge 3.0 supported fast charger out of the box, which tops the battery in about 1 hour 30 minutes. Now the Poco F1 is a flagship performer in a mid-range offering. It's a good attempt at being a flagship phone under the hood. The chipset, the RAM, the storage are all at par with the most powerful Android device right now. However, certain trade-offs and compromises keep the F1 from becoming the true flagship killer. Corners were cut in the design, there's no waterproofing, the Gorilla Glass on top of the panel is an outdated Gorilla Glass 3, the display has a lot of bezels around it and isn't the best in the game. The software too isn't perfect and some bugs still need to be ironed out. However, a flagship phone by definition embodies the best a company has to offer. If this is indeed the best Poco can do, it leaves a lot to be desired. The F1 is certainly value for money for those who simply demand speed, both on paper and in real life. But anyone asking for anything more, a better camera, a premium design and regular updates will have to look elsewhere. It's certainly the cheapest phone with the flagship processor, but standing in 2018, a flagship processor just does not make it a flagship device. Well, that's all that we had to say about the Poco F1. If you have anything more to add, let us know in the comments, and for more videos like this, do subscribe to digit.in.